Welcome back. You're watching Channel 1 Liverpool with me, Rifat Malik. Channel 1 Tobruk. Channel 1 Albert Dock. Time to take a look at the headlines now. It's 10 to 11. I'm Rifat Malik. 9 o'clock. I'm Rifat Malik. Christopher Older was found dead. All political campaigning has stopped. Stand head to head with.
Thank you again for joining us today. Mr. Schmitz, you have been running your platform based on community service and meeting citizens where they are. The incumbent for your district, André Carson, has served in his position for nearly 2 decades. What are you hoping to improve for your constituents if elected?
Well, just to give them better service and better access. Part of the reason why I decided to run against André was I've been trying to get a meeting with him for about 1.5 years. He did not meet with me. A staff member basically gave me a runaround for 6 or so months, and then I filled out a form, and then they said, we can't help you. And I never had a meeting, never talked about that. And the issue was the floodplain in the neighborhood I live in, which is an underserved neighborhood in Indianapolis, Mars Hill, with 628 homes in the floodplain. And those folks, a lot of them are poor. I can afford flood insurance, but a lot of our folks cannot. As soon as we are able to get out of this floodplain, which I have a plan to do, I mean, I'm actually a contractor and I do these type of things, then we can get us out of the floodplain and we can get that. So that is just one example of what we are not getting. Now, André Carson is serving some neighborhoods better than others. I want to serve each neighborhood equally to their needs and actually go out and talk to the folks that are there to see what their needs are and make sure we can get the federal funding and the stuff they need. And we're just not having that. I think after 16 years in office, complacency is just a problem that, it happens. You get comfortable. André doesn't even really campaign anymore. I just think we need somebody that's, I may look old, but I'm actually got energy for this office and feel like I can put the energy in it that needs it. Be out here in the community and be in Washington.
Right, and this is your second time running, correct? So can you just tell me a little bit about the first time you ran and then your platforms that you're running on this time?
Okay, so this is my first time to run against André Carson. Okay. Actually, in 2019, I tried to run for mayor of Indianapolis as an independent.
Okay.
I got a ton of signatures, more than we needed, and they systematically threw off signatures until I didn't have enough. So then I ran for the state house with a fairly popular Democrat here, same sort of issue. We've had the floodplain for years, and we have no sidewalks. And part of the reason it's our own fault in this neighborhood, because about only 20% of us vote. And really the politicians go where the votes are. I mean, that's what really keeps them in office. So they take care of those neighborhoods where they can vote. Those streets are paved. Those places have sidewalks. And I lost that twice. And part of that was because of the political atmosphere, Republicans not doing so well, Democrats doing well. And then this opportunity came along. This is what's really sort of odd about this, is the person who'd won the primary had actually died, was still on the ballot because they couldn't legally get them off the ballot, and then won. So the party got together and we had a 4-person primary, so to speak. I won that on the first vote with a supermajority. Off to the races, that was great. But now we're into a 2-to-1 Democrat area. It's my job to give our voters, our constituents, something better to go to. And that's what I hope to do. And that's after practicing running for all these offices and going out and listening to people for 6 years. I got a pretty good idea of what we need to do.
Yeah, and I'm sure, as you know, in your area of Indianapolis, there are less than 45,000 Muslims. So it's a pretty minority population, less than 1%. However, that's the audience that we serve nationwide. So can you just tell us a little bit about how you might plan to accommodate not only the Muslim community in your area, your constituents, but other minority communities as well?
Yes, and I think that's very important. And one of the things I'm going to sort of tell on my own party here a little bit, if you go out to the rural areas, you see Trump flag, it's very strong. We have a super majority in the state. 70 out of the 100 House members are Republican. I think it's 35 to 15 in the Senate. And it's not representative of the cities. The Republican Party does not look like Marion County. I hate to say it, I'm almost 63 years old, and I go to some of these meetings, and I'm the youngest guy there. Why we have not reached out to minorities, younger people. It is one of my beefs with the party. And that's one of the things that I feel is so very strong. I feel very strongly about building the party up with everyone's opinion. In fact, I have a talk show called Mouthwash Talk Show that listen to everyone's opinions. We respect everyone's opinions, even if we don't agree with it. And I don't see that with my party. I don't see that. I mean, I was viewed as an outsider till they finally got to the point where this guy's not going away. We need to maybe listen to it. And that's one of the things. I don't bend easily to stuff I don't find is fair. And I think a lot of our minority communities, and I would say the Muslim community in Indianapolis, it's not something that has to worry about hate crimes. I would say somewhat the Jewish community may have to worry a little bit about hate crimes, and none of that is Muslim driven towards Jewish. It's just some people that are maybe neo-Nazis or that type of a group, nothing to do with the Muslim community, but they are in that realm. And we in Indianapolis and Marion County are made up of tons of minorities. In fact, drives our city. And I feel like GOP has overlooked those folks. It's my goal to actually work harder for those folks that I feel are not being treated fairly, and to make sure they get the justice and to make sure they get the fair share of what they need to live their best lives.
Yeah, and that kind of gives us the perfect segue into my next question, which is kind of more about specifically the Republican Party, because I did notice that you're maybe a little bit more like lenient or just kind of like very like civil based, right? You're very community based. If elected, how will you handle these divisive issues such as, immigration, closing the borders, gun reform, whether there is less or more, and women's health care, banning abortion?
Yeah, oh boy, those are good ones. And I tell a lot of, I had actually a Republican ask me about, well, you're really, you're in the community, you got your, ear to the ground. But what about federally? How are we going to handle these things? And, I just don't like people that, putting labels on people. I just really, I joke and say I'm a conservative liberal with moderate values. I don't know what all that means, but one of the things, the abortion thing, it's just like a ticking time bomb of things. What's fair? What's right? I really believe that it's, between a person and their doctor, not only just a woman, but a person and your doctor. The government, in my opinion, doesn't do anything well. It is just such a it's such a volatile subject with some people. It's a single item. It's either you are or you're not. I'm for freedom with liberty. Freedom is to do what you want, but we do have to have some guardrails and some rules. That's liberty. And that's where I feel like that conversation to play so that people can have that freedom without harming someone else. That abortion question is really a one that just I struggle with, because I live in an underserved neighborhood and I see people struggling that, they have pets that they can't take care of. Is it the one sin of having abortion, or is it the 1,000 sins that'll come later when you have a kid that's unwanted? So, and that to me is a very personal, decision that people need to make. Government doesn't need to be making it.
Right. I mean, if elected to Congress, would you kind of already said, you agree with putting abortion into states' hands. So would you support any kind of federal legislation one way or the other?
I would really look hard at that because, at some point we have to have some consistency. We had Roe v. Wade for 50 years. And that was consistent. Everyone knew what it was, and everybody knew where it was going. I like consistent. I just don't like when you change things. And me being a contractor, we would get changes on our plan. We would have a plan, and we go out on the job, and then that doesn't match the plan. Well, then we got to change it. Well, sometimes you change that, and it affects 4 more things down the line that nobody thought of. To me, some things need to stay consistent and, or get it down to a level of the states. The federal government really should be doing only a few things. It should be protecting us from foreign adversaries. They should be basically, our interstate commerce. They should be make sure that happens smoothly. We have supply chains, we have roads, we have commerce. I hate to even say that they should be looking over our money supply because they've done such a horrible job with that. But I'm really concerned with our money supply and the way the BRICS, Bitcoin, and our monetary security is very important to me. Those are things the federal government should be doing, not really micromanaging our cities to make them all the same, because they're not all the same.
Yeah, so just kind of moving on. So our publication, AMT, has extensively covered what the International Court of Justice has ruled Israel's actions as an apartheid of Palestinians. This issue has, been very important to a lot of voters, a lot of young voters. It's a hot topic of discussion, especially whenever we talk about the presidential race. Will our president-elect continue to fund Israel's military aid? Do you think personally that the U.S. government should be funding Israel's military, whenever there has been both a national and international outcry for a solution to peace?
There's another proverb I believe in. If you want a fire to die down, don't add wood to it. I think that these turn into proxy wars. There's no good from it. It's none of our business type of stuff. I'm just really opposed to having funding going somewhere and then trying to tell the other country what to do. Either to stand down or to fight more or to whatever. Wait, what are you getting involved with? What are you funding our enemy? So you're basically making enemies and you're choosing sides. And obviously, if you're a Muslim, you're going to be upset with this Palestinian thing. And I'll give you a quick story, personal story. I'm at Thanksgiving and a friend of ours has our boyfriend over, and his father was Jordanian and mother was Palestinian. And he's an activist. I'm not going to mention his name because he's been water hosed. He's been all that stuff. I tried to get him to come on my show and we couldn't make it happen. But he understands it firsthand of what the struggle is and what the fight is. And then just listening to his story and where he's been with obviously having mixed parents from different countries. It is a very interesting lens. And I really think that we need to take time to look through each other's lens to see what we see out in front of us. And just throwing blanket things of, well, let's just fund them or give them, weapons or whatever. And I know that's probably not the most popular thing because obviously a Muslim would say, well, hey, we want you to tell Israel to stand down. And Israel's like saying, well, we need you to give us more weapons. It is a problem. It's something that's been going on for thousands of years. And solving it in a week or 2 weeks or even a 2-year term is going to be tough. But dialogue needs to happen. At this point, it's getting ugly. There's humanitarian needs. There's innocent people that are struggling. And every day that goes by, more folks are dying. And it's just heartbreaking. Things run their course. Things do their thing. But adding more money, weapons, whatever to it, prolongs it. And I don't know if we're ever going to have a winner or loser in this. It seems like wars that we have now, there's never an outcome where someone wins and it's over. But like I said, adding fuel to the fire prolongs the fire, just keeps it going.
Yeah. And then, so just bringing it back home domestically, I would really like to know, as someone who is running on the Republican ticket, what do you have to say about, Donald Trump's recent speech at a Christian gathering where he said they will never have to vote again if he is elected, as this created some concern, and he has denied that comment as a threat to the country's democratic process. But after the January 6th violence and the criminal indictments that he faces, can we believe him whenever he says these things?
Donald Trump is a promoter. He's been a promoter his whole lifetime. I tell people that ask me that, if you look at my social, I am not a Donald Trump promoter or fan. Hopefully you looked at my thing, at my background a little bit. I know you have because of some of the questions you've asked. And I tell people, I say, I don't care who's president. My job as a representative for District 7 is I'm going to hold him accountable. And I'm not afraid of Donald Trump. I mean, I don't care if I ever get elected again. But I'm going to do the darn right thing. If he comes out says silly things like that, I'm going to ask him, what do you exactly mean with that? You don't ever have to vote again. I pretty much have summarized Donald Trump's speeches, and I can't listen to more than a third of them. He can get done what he needs to get done in a third. He just adds that other 2/3 of gobbledygook that I don't understand. I'm a Hoosier. I'm from Indiana. We have different ways we do things, workers. And I'm just going to say this is basically a personality difference of, more hospitality, more humble. I'm not the greatest ever. We just deal with them. And it's like my father used to say, I would complain about somebody and he'd say, well, that's just how they are. Meaning they deal with them how they are. And like I said, back to complacency. It's something that happens. And, we have a shelf life. And I'll be honest, I do not have a capacity to be a representative in Washington, D.C. for a terribly, terribly long time. My ADHD will not allow it. I have 4-year windows, 10-year window, and if it gets past 10 years on anything, I got to move on. I just got to move on. I can't do it. But I do, and I love meeting people. I love doing it. And if you don't get in this business, you're going to meet a lot of people. And a lot of times you meet people that got a problem. So, it's be willing to problem solver and smile while you're doing it.
All right. Well, I don't have any further questions for you, Mr. Schmitz, today. Thank you so much again for your time.